right, while I get confirmation on that, let me turn off the lights so we can see the big screen. A bit easier. Yep, all right, cool. We're online, great. All right. Oh, okay, we can resume talking. We didn't have to stop. So where did we leave off? So I know, let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about the whole Fable thing. You know what?
To start, the Fable came out.
Yeah, let's just start with Fable. Okay, so if you didn't know, Fable just came out a couple days ago, which is great. And then also, like 2 hours ago, you can't even use it. Totally gone. So if you missed out, you really missed out. So the reasoning here, from my understanding and from what Ian just said, the U.S. government, I think it was something at like 5 a.m. Anthropic got a message to basically shut off the model's access to everybody.
Non-U.S. citizens.
Non-U.S. citizens. Well, I think the current thing right now is literally everybody at the moment until they figure out.
Until I figure out how to prove who U.S. citizens are.
Yeah. So okay, so the concerns and the questions that have come up that I've already raised in this small discussion and on X is, are they going to lock down this model to just like if you're inside the U.S.? And the funny thing there is I'm asking people questions. I've already asked these three. I'd love to hear from others. If that was the case, would you move back to the U.S.? That's one thing. I'm just really curious. Is anybody in here, like, someone literally go back to the U.S. for Fable?
Can I ask a related question?
Yeah, go for it.
We put our hands up for like, who thought it was 10% better, 20%
Okay,
better?
good. That's a good starting question. Okay, yeah. So for those who did use it, how should we pull it? Was it a step function change for you compared to Opus? Was it like just you realized that this thing was another
Are we
monster?
asking yes or no?
Yeah, raise your hand for yes.
1,000%.
So like, okay,
If you didn't get a step function, it's
It was
totally
better?
a skill issue.
okay, here's the other question.
Well, they say it has to be a harder problem. They don't do little problems. The harder, the better the step becomes.
It's true.
But I mean, the proof. Well, we can talk about later the Tokyo stuff.
I thought
Yeah.
the higher was
There-
a function, but the usage was like 10%.
Why are you changing it?
I think it was. I think it was too early to tell. I pulled it away. I had forced me to shift my mentality away from context engineering into web engineering. It forced me to think about things in terms of open-ended, North Star goals, loops, and build up big plans with dynamic workflows.
Yeah.
Now, I've been playing with all of that, but I hadn't made them a first-class way of thinking in context engineering. And this forced me to do that. So early this morning, I pulled in all those notes from Boris Cherny on his new way of thinking about getting rid of context engineering and all that, and was building this massive plan. And just as I'm about to execute it, go to a new window and said, not a fucking button.
Yeah.
Fuck you. But I'm the reason. But what I did do, I still ran it. I just ran it on Opus Extra High, which is cool. But I think what it does, I think the reason it's probably better is that I don't have to think too much. I'm just going to keep it to these open-ended questions, and it'll figure out everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so maybe
So
this is
yeah,
where-
here's what I want to do. I
forcing them further down.
one of the things that I want to bring up is that, so Ian spent his week in Tokyo, and in Tokyo they were doing a Claude Code event. It was one where they brought Boris. He went over there. The Jared, the guy who runs Bun, was also over there. The guy who made workflows, Sid, was over there. Ignacio, the guy who made Claude Agents View, was over there as well. They had how many employees? It was a lot.
over 70 employees.
Yeah, a lot of Anthropic employees in Tokyo, and so Ian spent the better part of a week there, and having the like just an awesome opportunity to not only interact with them, but in some cases talk with some of them one-on-one.
Yeah,
And so
I got a solid like 15 minutes alone with Boris. Theric is how you pronounce his name apparently. Not Tariq. Theric and Sid. I spent a lot of time with Sid.
Yeah.
A little bit of time with Jared, and it was funny. So there's a few things that came out of this. One is in order to make the new model the way it is they deleted 80% of the system prompt. So over 80, and they're trying to delete more actually. And then my whole time with Boris was essentially like how to use the model the right way. He said this whole time,
Mythos.
yeah.
How to use Mythos.
Mythos and what's that?
Fable.
Yeah, Mythos, and mostly Fable. So, and it was like, it was a very different way. He basically said, he said, it turns out we've been wrong this way on how to use the model. It turns out that the more system prompt you delete and the less context engineering. He basically said BMAD's the worst thing you could ever do in your life. Any type of context engineering, any type of, these tools where you use old methodologies for planning. And he said internally, himself and nobody on the core team even use plan mode anymore. And that was this is why the last few interviews he's been public about this, that he doesn't consider himself like a context engineer anymore. He's a loop engineer. So it's more about loops and routines than writing context. And so he was saying like basically you want to be as like North Star focused on the prompt as possible, with but with as little instructions as possible.
But you still got to have a file memory. Now,
Yeah.
part of it is that it's building up a file memory that he can read from. And
Yeah, and we talked a lot about the dreaming stuff, and the dreaming stuff that happens in what do you call it, in the platform, like for managed agents, is actually built into Claude Code. They just don't tell you, and there's not a way to control it. So there is access to that. But his whole thing was like, you want to leave questions as short as possible, as open-ended as possible, and trust the model. Like, it turns out the whole time that they've been trying to constrain the model, and it backs it into a corner, and it does things that it wouldn't do, that it wouldn't do if it had the choice. And this was like really brought up front so Jared gave like an hour talk about this thing that he's been talking about all day, is how they ported Bun over to Rust. And he talked about how. So he did it with Fable. He did it with the most open-ended possible thing possible. And it took him 11 days. And the rumor, the Hacker News rumor that was that 97.6% of tests passed, he said the real truth is that 100% of every test passed after the 11th day. The way he did it was he ran the model on a goal and ran an adversarial model next to it, so a model that had no, it wasn't adversarial in the way that it was saying go look for things, it was just looking at the code with no context of what's going on. And then he had a second adversarial model that judged the adversarial model. So there's two adversarial models in one model. Ran it for 11 days. It actually wasn't as expensive as everyone thought it would be. Like, it wasn't like millions and millions of dollars in tokens, but it was Fable. Like they've had Fable for like 6 or 8 weeks so far internally. But it just like every single person, Sid, Tariq, Boris, Jared, they all said the same thing, was essentially like the era of prompt engineering and context engineering is over. Like, stop doing it. Like, just be as concise as possible. Give it a North Star and just let it do its thing. It's going to do it better.
Also for Opus or only for Mythos and Fable?
Mythos.
I think it's true of everything to an extent, but yeah, specifically, like very specifically Mythos and Fable, and I think it's because this whole of them getting rid of the 80% of the prompt.
But that's just like bitter lesson stuff.
Yeah, that's what they say. They're like we tried everything.
Yeah.
It works great, but now we found that if we remove all these roadblocks out of the system prompt, it can do actually more. And it's also because there's a step change in the model difference, right? Like so they're doing really good getting the models better by throwing more compute at it, but also like when they started working with the system prompt and stuff.
Like if we think about the context engineering we had to do, like Opus 4 till now, like you could only get Opus previously to run for 20 minutes was good.
Yeah.
And you had to scaffold it up.
Yeah.
That's no longer the case.
No, this is it's like that. Like the proof is like they were saying Fable can run for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like the 11 days for Bun was one. That was one prompt, a single prompt.
We're not
that
going to be
was-
able to afford this.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah, workflows as
It was
well.
a big
But
workflow
we
that
said we tried this with Fable, it ran for 3 weeks, and we tried this with Opus, it ran for.
Yeah, no, he did say that he tried something with Opus and he ended up deleting it. Like it just wasn't doing what they expected. But this was probably pre-workflows. So it was workflows and loops and the new model. So it was between those he was able to do it.
Well, the number of workflows that they had.
Question because it makes sense that if they remove a critical set of system prompt, then I need less context because context was fighting with the system prompt mostly. But from the other side, when I'm porting some stuff, then the end goal is very clear, one-to-one, so I can trust the model. But if I want to build something my way, then I need to provide this context, what's my way.
But that's the statement. He's trying to get people to start building it my way and just let the model do
He's
it.
basically the
Yeah.
he's like,
I mean, in coding,
surrender
maybe
your
makes sense, but
trust.
with the other knowledge work, if you don't do your way, you will just have autocomplete everyone get the same outcome, like mid-curve.
Yeah, that might be
but
different
you
for
do-
enterprise
You
as
do
well.
always put some context in the form of your second brain. So your second brain is still influencing what happens. That should be your perspective on the world. It's just when it goes to do the task, give it a goal, give it a loop, give it a definition of done. That's it.
I can share. There's they gave us a repo. I gave it to Nick already. Maybe we
So
can
what is the difference?
post it.
Because you said that VMAT is the worst way right now, but this is exactly a VMAT. VMAT is like second brain. You put
No, well, second brain is separate BMAT. So BMAT or SpecKit or JSD or any of those systems are humans versions of saying how do we take extreme programming or agile and put it into people's roles, like whatever. And it says, why bother? It will create the roles. If you do a dynamic workflow, it will write all the prompts for every part of that workflow. It will decide whether it makes the pan out or run in serial form. You just give it a goal.
okay, so
a
then
definition.
now you need a task, the goal, and the definition of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be honest, it was also true like with the codex models, like for months already.
Sure. Yeah. But that's what they're trying to say. The whole idea of they've learnt the hard way that context engineering is not.
Yeah, they're just saying over-specking things backs it into a corner.
Well, too many. So if you look at the whole 80% reduction in the system prompt and so on, I think what they're sort of pointing out is what the Pi harness users have figured out a long time ago, which is, hey, it turns out if you just remove all this shit and only let the model do what it wants, you're going to have this like super powered model. So the way I see it is more of an acknowledgement towards that. And then also, what does that look like concretely for your workflows? It's something like start ripping out instructions and processes that you have. You probably don't need them anymore. As a matter of fact,
So then even if Fable is like more expensive per million token, but he needs less context, so maybe it will be cheaper.
No, this is a.
I wouldn't say it needs less
So
context.
Jared did say this. Jared said that what he saw was with Fable, it's very token hungry, but if you compare it next to Opus, it actually uses less money worth of tokens. So it costs more and it's token heavy, but it uses, when the total amount of tokens to get to done is actually a lot less.
Yeah, but
That doesn't make
see
sense.
from my use case, the most
It makes
cost
complete
is
sense.
the input.
Can
Like-
explain it to you differently then.
Because, no, because he's saying, so the definition of done part. So the definition of done is gonna take you a lot longer and a lot more
With Opus.
with Opus than it will with Fable. And also Fable's like, what's left of the system prompt is basically use X tool for this and tools for this, so you don't have to jumble up all the token data. So it's using more tokens because it's thinking deeper, but it's not
Oh, it
using more
definitely is,
tokens
yeah.
for output.
Well, one of the things that,
Thinking
when I
tokens
looked
are
at,
charged as well.
What's that?
Thinking tokens are charged as
No,
well.
that's what I'm saying. Like thinking, but I'm just saying like it's doing more.
How can it do more?
It's more doing programmatic stuff.
so I think the reason there, because I was looking at, when Fables runs, I look at the I hit Control O and start reading what it's doing. And so if you remember when Opus, I don't know, 4.5 I think came out, it started doing a lot of Bash and a lot of Python dynamically as it runs like a Bash tool. And Fable would, an Opus would have like something, maybe it was like this big on my terminal window. Fable's thing is like, it's basically writing a bunch of mini programs on every single assistant message out. So every time it does a tool call, it's almost as if it's like writing a program to be executed and then, sort of waits for the results back. And I thought that was like mind-blowing because what we're seeing is that it's basically writing apps on the fly just to sort of solve the problem.
Well, and what it'll do
We
is,
were talking about that 7 months ago.
no, but what it'll
When they
do is,
released that paper and we were still.
Yeah,
in
the
process.
programmatic capabilities
Yeah.
where they let the model use programmatic capabilities as a tool call. But what wasn't present at the time was a model that could write 200 lines of code for a Bash output and then do it again and then again and again as a way to achieve a goal. That is.
Okay, so back to the original question, how does doing that use less tokens?
because what it'll do is it creates, so we talked about, I only know this because Nick passed a question to me to talk to Sid about, was the whole dynamic workflow thing. So what it'll do is it won't create a workflow every single time. So it'll create a workflow, but you're going to use that workflow multiple times in a session. It'll re-trigger that. So it's just JavaScript, right? So once it's created it once, it can reuse it.
I don't disagree with any of these techniques, I just wish there would A/B test Mythos and Opus. I'm sure.
So
That's up for us to
Jared
do.
said, yeah,
Spend the money
I
on.
did a
No.
thing yesterday.
Jared
where I
said
fucked
he-
up, and I was using Opus and I thought I was using Mythos. And then I was like, oh, throw it away, I'll use Mythos. And it gave me basically like character by character output on the second run. It was the same.
So I wonder what you're running though too, because like one thing Boris said was like, if you look at the benchmarks, like the benchmarks will show like agentic compute, like the agentic tasks going from like 68% to 80% between Opus and Mythos. But he said basically if you give it a longer running harder task, the gap gets so big that it's like off the chart. So it's like the harder, the more complex the task, the better. Like
Because we need
it's-
to know this, because
yeah.
if we're using workflows correctly, then we should be using Mythos. But for everything that's not doing that, we should be saving money on Opus if there's no difference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And Sid said that too. Basically, like
Don't use Mythos for
yeah,
everything.
use Fable for this complex stuff and planning, getting everything in place. But like when you're doing like small pieces of code or fixes or adjustments, use Opus.
But you
And
don't
that way
even
it's-
need to think
But it's
that
only
way.
been out 3 days, so they're not going to have all the, You know
best
how they are,
practices.
is they kind of, it's like a research preview, they don't put any documentation out.
But it's all in there. If you sit there and just do sort of an opus model for a long time, building up in context everything you want, the last thing you say is, if you thought about this, how would you build it out? What models would you use? It'll figure that shit out for you. And then that's your question of whether you should use Opus or not. Ask it. It'll tell you. It'll tell you the best model to use.
Well, that's the direction we're heading in. I think that's maybe the point, right? We're heading in that direction where you might need to start to adjust how you talk to these models and start thinking of it like that. Like, hey, you need to figure this out, and you need to pick what's best for me. You have to think in terms
I
of.
love that approach, right? I think giving it freedom and cutting down on the context and letting it make its own decisions, I 100% agree with that. I just don't know why everyone's saying, oh, you need Mythos for this, but we haven't tested if you can do it with Opus.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. There were people who had access to it and gave their review a couple days before it came out on X. It's hard to say if they're honest or not.
I think the biggest thing was that because of this 80% reduction in the system prompt, it allows it to run longer. So it's like, in the end, like Mythos would probably do better in theory. But yeah, you'd have to test it. What's that?
Or we could use Pi.
Or
to make
Pi.
a system.
Or Pi. That was a whole other thing. That was like another thing that two girls from the platform saying that we shouldn't be messing with.
Harness engineering.
I'm still totally confused about
Yeah,
it. I'm going to
yeah.
ask them. I got their emails. I'm going to ask them more about it. But they're like, it's like a waste of time to mess too much with the harness.
Yeah, they were saying, so harness engineering, context engineering are bad. Try to not do it because it just goes towards, it's just worse than the alternative.
Yeah, and they said internally they've not been able to benchmark that Cursor or what's the Factory or any of these things actually, like, Pi build versions or even open code actually have any better output than their own harness because it adjusts the system prompt again.
But they haven't been able to benchmark it. Or
Yeah.
have they benchmarked?
I think they've benchmarked it. Like
So
they
they
use
know
the
they
term
have a-
benchmark, but like it's not public. They're very careful about like how they're like. You notice when they put out their benchmarks, they only show theirs. They don't show against ChatGPT or like anything like that. So they're very careful about how they talk bad about other companies, like Open Code or something. But internally, they all basically say it actually does work.
They all talk shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say talk shit, but
Not
like nobody was like they suck. Everyone was just like
It's not.
they're
it's not
benchmark internally. It's not helping.
There was one thing you shared with me the public benchmarking system that we all see when it comes to the model cards and stuff, they have their own far more expanded benchmarking system that we don't see, and and they care about that more than anything else.
Yeah, because they were saying like a lot of these the base benchmarks are kind of outdated, where like they'll give like an old repo with problems and test against it, for example, and it's kind of it's disingenuous to the Mythos models because these are small basic tasks essentially, so they only show that like 10% increase gap, but it was the harder, longer, bigger problems where like the gap got much bigger. So they have much more conclusive and harder tests internally on how they benchmark it. But I mean, they can't really put that out because that's it's their own internal test, and they're going to be like, well, that's fake.
Giving away the secret sauce.
Or
So
that
one
too.
thing I want to bring up, I want to ask Ian a question here, because there was something that was interesting. One of the things he found out, the difference between Mythos and Fable. So if we go back a couple of weeks, Boris had came out publicly and said some derivative of Mythos is what will be available to everyone. And so that sort of makes you think that it was going to be some distillation of Mythos or something based off of it. and that's what we would get access to, but it turns out that,
So Boris said Fable is 100% Mythos. There's no difference between it except for the guardrail. So the bio guardrail and the security guardrail, those are the only two things. And that's why they were having, they were concerned about releasing it, and some of the stuff was like they hadn't dialed in whether people could get around those guardrails. So in the first couple of days, they got a lot of, like, you saw people on X saying, like, I couldn't do something that wasn't even bio-related because it detected it as bio-related. They said it took them, like, time to dial that in because they had to basically over-lock it down and then slowly release the guardrails.
That could explain the potential issue today. Maybe it was jailbroken by a few people.
This is like, so they cited that. So the paper from the Trump administration cited that it could be jailbroken, but they didn't provide any evidence that it was. And Anthropic's response said that they had no evidence that it's actually been jailbroken.
What's the truth?
Yeah.
No, well, like, we know these models can be jailbroken.
Yeah, of
fairly
course.
soon.
Everybody's trying at the moment a new model comes out, right?
And I'm sure, because a lot of programmers I heard that were using Fable were like, I'm just getting flagged for cyber all the time, it's annoying. So
Yeah.
they're gonna jailbreak it so they can do work.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying in
Yeah.
the beginning is people were getting flagged
Yeah.
way too much, but they had dialed it in already, like supposedly by yesterday. that
Well,
they
we got rugged. Like, I upgraded yesterday, and now I'm
Well, yeah, the funny Theo became like a Anthropic fan overnight, and then he was like, I bought the entire team Anthropic subscriptions, and then woke up in the morning and it's gone.
What are you talking about?
Fable's gone.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I just learned 5 seconds ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that goes into a whole other conversation about like government control over AI models.
I was gonna say it's super fascinating, but the only way they can stop it from doing cyber is by having like an API in front of the model, because this means that open models can't be censored, right? Because if you release the model weights, you can't release like the web server in front of the model weights.
Yeah.
So essentially what they're saying is like cyber is basically bash orchestration. We can't get it to be done at bash orchestration or the whole agentic thing will collapse. So this capability is going to get out there because as soon as the Chinese models are at the Fable level, well, nobody can stop cyber.
Well, I think who was it? Someone from Anthropic said that the goal was that, and I think we all anticipated this. Anthropic and possibly OpenAI, their aim is probably going to I just need to have the stronger model relative to whatever is available on the open source, right?
I mean, other guardrails in Fable, they are like Bash, something like that, like programmable.
No, they're an API.
API, yeah, because like you can't, by nature of how LLMs are built, can't really align that.
Yeah, you can't.
It's not
That's
possible.
why they have to.
So it has to have some sort of external, like deterministic rules and API, flags to people.
If you have some bad thing that you don't want it to know about, like Tiananmen Square, that doesn't affect your programming ability, so you can kind of like cut that out. But if you have something that's basically bash orchestration, then how can you cut out bash orchestration? You're gonna like completely make the thing stupid.
Well, like, GPT OSS was like, well, we spend so much time making sure this model can't do anything we don't want it to do. But yeah, you change that, you might fuck everything up because it's less good at everything.
Well, the cool thing about local models is you can create your own system from, set the temperature, and you have a lot more control. So, yeah.
And they said they weren't filtering cyber on Opus 4.6 and anything before that. All of the blocks came in after that, right?
No, they were still filtering stuff. They just put heavy roadblocks on cyber stuff because they would flag you if you said something about like how to make a bomb or something.
But
So they definitely had some sort of.
Like, people making bombs don't affect its programming capability. You can cut that out of the model and nobody suffers.
Yeah.
But people making computerized cyber bombs,
Yeah.
i.e. programming, cuts out its programming ability, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So
this
they
is
just
what,
wanna cut that
to me,
out.
is what you were saying, is this goes straight to government control over AI, because didn't Microsoft just cut off, they're not using it anymore because Anthropic is storing everything for this purpose.
Well,
So-
yeah, yeah, they were storing all Fable and Mythos, even on your if you're on Enterprise or not,
Right.
for 30 days,
Right.
so they can see if people are trying, like, are
And
trying.
one would think this is a one-way ratchet, because as these models get more powerful, why would you ever suddenly say, oh, now we don't need to store it? Because to your point, if you don't do it that way, then you're nerfing it for regular purposes.
Well, the
So-
scary thing is, like, if, like, ChatGPT puts 5.7 out tomorrow, and it's just as good at that, but maybe the approach that they take or whatever, like, where does the government draw the line and say, you know, we take this model, but we don't take that model, and,
They draw a line in Fable.
yeah.
There you go.
And you also obviously have the pressure of China that is not slowing down.
Yeah, that's why they're like, oh, we can use it. That's basically what the response from the White House was like, only we can use it and some U.S. citizens. Nobody else.
But there's
It's like, yeah, like he said, the irony is, like, a month ago they were like, you can't use Anthropic inside of the U.S. Well, they lost all those court battles and they started using Anthropic with the U.S. again. And now it's like, now since we can use it, we're going to be the only ones that can use it.
feel something for losing battle babies. By some estimates I've seen, like Chinese models are running 6 to 8 months behind the US models. So you can assume that, like, by Christmas we're gonna have a Chinese model which is Fable capable. So all these guardrails Anthropic building are useful right now, but at the end of the day, it's gonna keep going forward. And so how do you control or you can't control?
Yeah, I think it, like, that's what I was saying. I was like, I understood, like, the Mythos thing, like, if they wanted, because they were already guardrailing that anyway from everybody else. But, like, the whole point of Fable was that it was stopped, it had those guardrails on it. And why wouldn't you want Anthropic, who's doing this, to collect that data to make it better? Because you're basically hampering that if you don't give people access to it as well, which means it's going to slow down the improvement. There's another thing, like when Kat did her demo, she was basically showing how the model release is happening. And, you know, they talked a lot about this, how, like, the space between model releases is getting shorter and shorter, and also the increase in the capability of the model. So it's shorter and increased capability. So this whole, like, you know, Dario said this before, there's like this exponential curve that's happening, and there was this assumption that there was a ceiling, but internally they don't see a ceiling at all. They're like, even Jason at the dinner that we had with them was like, new model, like they're already working on new models that are significantly better than these ones. Like he's like, the new models are coming and they're coming faster.
There's going to be a point at which they'll be using AI to improve the AI models.
No, they're already there. That's actually what Mythos is, I think.
They're already, yeah.
This is the recursive learning.
This is what they said. They said this a lot there. They're like, you think this model is crazy? Like, we've already started recursive, because there's a lot of ML people there.
So the exponential is only going to get steeper and steeper.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they were saying.
So-
It's like Dario calls it like the smooth exponential, where it's like slow ramp, and then it just becomes like a skyrocket.
Well, that article so in the last Cloud event that we just did, the article I had shared on the screen, which had came out from Anthropic's own team, talked about how within the research side, they were figuring out you know, when they gave Claude the decision making, you know, hey, what direction do we go in? It was like something like, what, 50 or 60% of the time it was the right direction to go in. And so that's a big indicator of like, well, okay, as it gets closer to 100, that means that they're going to just use Claude to decide for them, right? And so what does that look like in a lab where you have these things automated? It's like, Claude, go figure this out, and I'm not even going to bother watching you until the thing is done. So what sort of results do you get from that? That's
vibe-coded model.
Yeah, a vibe-coded model.
Plus they have Carpathy now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
they probably
And
threw
her.
auto research against it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So then, does that mean that there's a point at which the public can also do the same thing? If you take a fable and you use it to improve your own version of the weightings or whatever, then you could do your own recursive loop and be building the next frontier model.
Yeah, I think people are trying to do that in open weight models already.
That's kind of Carpathy's open
Or-
research.
or-
Auto research?
Yeah, but I guess you need to be able to afford a compute, right?
Yeah, that's a big
Found money for that.
But there will be companies that will be doing that, right? And at some point, they're going to go, I don't need Fable, we've built our own.
Yeah, I think the idea that like Fable is special, and it is, like, I do think it is, but like to think that something just as capable won't be out in 3 or 4 months is, I think they're ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff, and a lot of that's pretty recent because of their new access to compute. But like I don't know that. Yeah, a Fable thing's going to be a base thing soon anyway. I'm quite
I
sure.
guess the click moment I just had though was, I was working under the assumption that there's going to be a winner takes all in the AI race. And
Anthropic.
someone's going to have the model, whether it's Anthropic or whoever.
Yeah.
And all the other competitors are going to drop away and just go, look, we can't compete. It's off to the races. But from that click moment, it's like, no, if we can get our own version of that recursive loop happening, then anyone can be building a competitive model.
If you have the compute and the money and the,
And I'm thinking of
You would have to like
Googles and the
recreate
OpenAIs.
the Anthropic company, and so it makes me want to ask. I want Ian to share something, another insight he got, because what you're saying, in order to recreate Anthropic, what would that take? And so the question I'm going to ask Ian is a really interesting answer, I think. So the question is, you heard from some of the folks in Anthropic, the way that they're doing their strategic planning, the way that they're planning their sprints, their objectives and strategies. The answer is
they aren't.
they are. Okay, so can you expand on what you heard
Yeah,
and how this is?
So they basically said that like internally, like this stuff is moving so fast that they have zero strategy. They started with like 6 month and then 3 month and then 1 month, and they're like, what'll happen is like probably like this. Like 4 days ago, they had a strategy that's completely got a shift now, and they've learned that inside of here. So even when they like I was talking with the sales lead for enterprise, and she was saying like what's happening now is they're like, first of all, they're having a hard time hiring enough people. So that's one problem. But also like when they hire somebody, so Jason Bigman, he's the guy that runs Community, which is like what I'm under. They hired him from Reddit. They dropped him in there and they're like, go do something. We don't know what you're gonna do or how you're gonna do it. They thought he was gonna start like a message board or some, run a Discord thing. Like they have no clue. And like the sales lady was talking about like they, it used to be at all the companies she's worked at before, there's like a 6 to 8 week lead on. You have to like bring them out on calls, you have to train them in the system, and you have to do all this. And like Anthropic, they're on sales calls within 4 days. Like they're out with clients, they already get assigned clients within a couple days. And it's just, they basically give them all the skills and knowledge they can in like the Claude, in like co-work and everything, and they just have to ask Claude, what's my job? They opened the office in Japan, there's 60 or 40 employees there now. The first one was June, he's like the community guy for Southeast Asia. They literally said, here's the keys to the office, and it was empty, like here's some money to go buy some fold out tables. And it's still like a startup. And he's literally like, it was funny when they walked in, there's like 3 people sitting on the floor, they got like a table with a couple fold out chairs. It's like $1 trillion company, but they're like, they can't keep up with it. So, in like the way this moves so fast. So they just basically said that they've got rid of every strategy. They don't do meetings whenever, they have to do meetings. It's more of like a make sure we're aligned meetings. but like they try to do absolutely no meetings that don't have to happen, which I found interesting at a company that size.
If they,
So this reveals the company culture, right? The culture of the company, which is an incredibly hard thing to cultivate, especially as the company grows in size. And so in the traditional company, when you're gonna sit and make decisions looking 3 months out, 6 months out, it's absolutely ludicrous to say, let's not do that, because it doesn't make sense. So talking about recreating an Anthropic, how do you even start?
Yeah, and how do you have like, you know, you have 10,000 employees already and you don't,
and this is
Yeah,
my
how
next
do you
question. So
adapt
if they
to,
don't
right?
have
So-
strategy or a real direction that they're giving to the improvement of the model and the weightings, what's their objective function? How are they determining that it's the improvement, and how are they telling the AI to improve in this direction?
I think, so like another thing, and we knew about this already, because if you think about how Claude Code came about, like they're a bottoms up company. So like they let the lowest level developer make major decisions in the company if they so like even Boris there was no Claude Code team. He was working on a side thing to make his job easier and posted on Slack, and people started using it. Now it's become the core revenue driver of the company, right? And there's no like, Dario's not telling his sister to tell people to do X. And then like Kat, who's like the product manager of Claude Code, she's not saying, okay, we need to hit these KPIs, so you need to do this thing. She's just sitting there and waiting to see what an engineer comes up with. The same thing like skills, like with Daisy. It's like, I'm gonna try this thing, you guys cool with it? Like, and she does it and it like runs the loop and gets skills by Monday. And then they're like, that's cool, let's use it internally. They use it internally for 5 or 6 days and they're like, okay, people like this thing, let's release it to the world as a research preview. And this is why they do research previews, is they try things and they pull things all the time.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, you know, one guy comes up with an idea, they're like, okay, go for it, run with it. And if it, even like, so like Jason and community, they're like, you know, here's a tiny bit of a budget, like do something. And he's like, well, I want to get like ambassadors set up all over the world and, you know, do this thing. And they did it and it started working. And so they're like, okay, here's more money and more people. Go find somebody in the company that wants to work with you and pull them. So this is kind of like how it is too in the companies. They're like, hey, you want to come work with me? You know, the reason Daisy ended up on the Claude Code team is because she was on, I think she was in ML or
An API team.
she was like on the API team, and she had saw something that was getting
submitted a
committed.
PR.
She just did like one PR, and like Boris saw that and was like, he didn't even know who she was. He's like, I need to find this person. And went over there and be like, do you want to come work for me? And they just pull people. And this is like how, you know, there's another guy that I met during my office hours, and he was a Claude Code team, but he was also the Claude Partner Program team. So he's like on 2 separate teams, and he was kind of the liaison between the two because he likes them both.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to work over here, and I want to work over here, and they'll have me, so I'll be here.
Let me come back to your question then. Like, how could you stand up a separate company and try and compete against Claude? So say Claude is really good at doing coding and stuff like that, but someone goes, I want to build the best model in pharmaceutical space that will solve cure cancer kind of thing, and that's what we're going to focus on. If they can build a better objective function, which is the thing that is like the goal or the target that it's heading towards, and can set that better and use the same sort of model and learning capability as Mythos to get there, then probably they might be able to do it before an Anthropic.
But you would have to
Oh, yeah.
argue, so
Yeah.
Anthropic has a whole research team for meta. Like, Dario's very much a researcher. He's like anti-code. You know, he never talks like about the Claude Code team, which I find kind of a bummer. But like, he's really big on the research side. So they got all these, like Mythos is primarily being used in the biolabs to try and cure disease. Because this is.
But I think this is very valid.
Yeah.
This is very valid. Like, how do you stop it? And I think it's probably I don't have an answer. I don't think anyone's going to have an answer. I think it's like a humanity question. We all have to solve this together in a way where it's like
And there was,
huh?
Stop what?
Stop what? Oh, so if some company is gonna go and decide that it needs to make its own Mythos class model in order to achieve some target, and the target could be nefarious, it could be good, we're not sure. There's the question of, well, should you allow that? And then it opens up a whole can of worms. Like, what do you mean? Why even ask the question in the first place?
The thing I'm
Right.
interested in is the mechanics of it, like, because I imagine you could set a benchmark, and you could say this is a benchmark for what extremely good pharmaceutical model would look like, and then let the AI go, you figure out how to get there.
So, Noah would bring up before, they were training on finding 0 days, because a 0 day is something that hasn't been found, right? And it's the only benchmark they can use, because what else are you gonna do? Is this code good? Like, let's find something novel,
So
right?
defining that benchmark is the most critical thing.
Well, and that might be why Mythos is good, because they're optimizing towards debugging code and finding 0 days, and like, oh shit, now it does that, like,
Which means it's
easily.
better at other
That's,
things.
that's what we hill climb towards.
And-
Yeah.
It might only be good at that one thing on a hill climb. And that's why they're hyping up that one thing.
Yeah.
Well, but it sets a pattern, right? Like, if you set a target and you hill climb towards it, okay, well, how many other things should we hill climb in parallel, possibly,
But
right?
like,
Or does hill climbing towards that thing make the overall model better in
Exactly.
general?
but like, what else in code can you hill climb towards? Like,
Any metric.
Make
So-
me $1 million? That's like the one we all want, right?
well, like, okay, so we had in the video game industry, for example. I'd love to hear your take on this, but there is an aspect of chasing a psychological metric of addiction, and it's almost like we hit it. We hit it, and certainly Facebook has hit it.
Yeah.
They're not even a gaming company.
Yeah.
And so, what if the targets become things like this, right? Like either addiction or happiness or depression or some sort of emotional thing.
And you can bet Meta's doing that right now, right? Because they're
Oh,
already,
yeah.
they're using the addiction economy to
Yeah.
make money out of you, right? So they would be ramping that up with their AI team.
Yeah. So that's a hill climb target, and Mythos go figure out how to do it.
But
Yeah, exactly. So wait. No,
Hill climb
wait.
targets have to be automatable. You can't automate the addiction problem because you need a human clicking the button, right?
Something went
But this is-
semi-viral this week, which was that in their 2023 raise, Dario's thesis that he was presenting to investors was that whoever can get ahead now by 2025 or 2026, this is in 2023, he was saying this, will basically reach escape velocity because of recursive self-improvement. So the idea is very simple. You hill climb on this thing, and you get the model to be able to bootstrap code,
Yeah.
and then that can generalize and extrapolate. So regardless, you can argue the thesis, obviously, right? There were people who didn't invest in 2023 because they didn't believe the thesis. But to me, what it's important, like to your point that Dario is a researcher, it's like their AGI build. If you just take that, like Occam's razor,
This is
their
why they're having a
AGI
problem
build,
hiring people.
They
They
don't
can't
have
find enough
meetings,
AGI
buildings are empty. Daisy, sure, you come, Boris, yeah, whatever. Because if you're AGI pilled, none of this matters. All this shit about optimizing for pharmaceuticals and KPIs, they might be wrong, right? That may turn out to be right. But if you're AGI pilled, none of that shit matters. All that matters is what they're doing. And that's what they're running on. And
Well, that's the argument of the team is like if you can solve code, you can solve everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everything is essentially
That's the
code.
bet. That's
Yeah.
the bet.
Yeah.
And you can agree with the bet or not agree with the bet.
The
But
bet-
the interesting
bet's
part
working.
though is exactly, that's what makes it interesting, is that they're fucking thrashing everyone.
I didn't hear it.
It's working. The bet is working.
Like they were a smaller lab, they focused on coding only, ChatGPT, OpenAI.
Yeah, no
focused
image
on
models,
everything.
no, yeah.
And that bet is paying off, because now it can
That's the one good thing about like
code itself.
Dario gets a lot of flack for things, but if you read like a lot of his articles, especially his earlier ones, and he talks about the recursive self-learning, all the. I went down like a Dario path while I was there because they had this book set that was like all his articles as a book, and I started reading through it, and I was like, when you start reading some of the older stuff that's like 2 or 3 years old, and you realize how right he is
Exactly.
on some of this stuff, and like there was, if you get a chance, there's a Bloomberg 2 days ago did a whole expose on Anthropic with Dario and his sister, and it was really good, and it like kind of opened the mind up to the thinking. You know, he's talking like, oh, everyone thinks that, you know, everyone, like the questions they ask is like, everyone thinks like you're you know, you're scaring people with this stuff as a marketing ploy. And his argument was like that. He's like, every time I come out with an interview and say that stuff, we lose hundreds of millions of dollars. He's like, it's an antithesis to think that's even the capability. He's like, I just think it's important that we have to do it. And, you know, to what you were saying earlier, it was like, you know, he's like, he's in a hard place where it's like, there's things we probably shouldn't do or support, but like, we can't not release the models at the same time. So he's like, he's saying like, this is gonna hurt people, but here's the thing that's gonna hurt people, right? Like he's doing both because he's like, they need to stay ahead of the curve on it. They need to be the first ones to do it. And it was just an interesting, like if you watch that thing and then go back and look at some of the old articles, it changed my mind. I was actually like kind of anti.
It's the issue I always bring up with
and I
Anthropic.
kind of came back. Like,
what, sorry?
I was very anti-Dario for a long time. Like I obviously I'm a huge Anthropic person, but like Dario's kind of the, you know, the downside of that. But like as I dug in, like especially in the last week, I've completely shifted my mind.
I have a separate question. If the company, like the system that built the model, the internal everything is working properly, and they go IPO with the pressure of now stock prices, is that going to change the internal company? And now are they going to not be able to really do
that's
kind of
that's
what
a
they want
thing.
to do?
That's a thing. This was another thing. This is kind of separate, but like one thing that we found out, I don't think is even public at all right now. We found out in Japan was, as of this month, Anthropic is 100% profitable and in the black.
Oh yeah.
Which is a big deal because this is why they were racing to be OpenAI to IPO, because OpenAI does not fit that category. Like they're losing $17 billion a month or something. So their concern is like if OpenAI IPOs first, people are going to look at those numbers. It's going to burst the bubble. You know, investor value is going to go down. But Anthropic's actually profitable, so we'll see when the IPO number, because they have to release everything public when they IPO. Like you're going to see numbers that are probably going to be pretty mind-blowing and might actually accelerate.
Well, but IPO will change the company.
Yeah, that's
the pressure.
That changes the
You're saying that the
Anthropic
pressure
is
that's
not a C corp; they're a B corp, which is the Public Benefit Corporation, which specifically the whole reason that came into existence 10 or 15 years ago was that the company cannot be sued by shareholders for not maximizing profit. They're designed to be in the public good, so they have less pressure than the traditional C corps would, and it's rare. There's not that many.
Yeah.
Of
I didn't know
these
this. This is interesting. I did not know this at all. So you're
It
saying
is. I
this
think
is how
about it. I
Anthropic
mean, it's-
filed the company, and this is how
Yeah,
they're.
it's called, you can, if you just search Anthropic PBC,
Yeah.
you'll see it's a public benefit corporation, which is called a B Corp, as opposed to a C Corp. And,
They're IPOing as a B Corp?
they would have to re-incorporate.
Yeah, I'm not sure, like,
No, there you go. Wait, just do B Corp, yeah.
But when the price goes down, there's still pressure. no matter what.
No, of course there's pressure, but they
Less
they don't
pressure.
have, they can't
Yeah,
get
for sure.
sued. Part of the thing, like, that Elon is always dealing with is like.
He's gonna get ousted if
Getting
we-
sued, yeah, and getting ousted and like, all of these things.
And so we look at track record wise, we would look at Dario saying no to the DoD as sort of like,
Yeah,
hey,
that-
we're willing to stand on our moral
Sorry, I guess
ground.
I'm wrong. I didn't realize there's a difference between PBC and B Corp.
Okay, let's read it. So key distinction. Anthropic is incorporated as a Delaware public benefit corporation, often styled as Anthropic PBC, not a certified B Corp. Key distinction. PBC, this is a legal corporate structure available under Delaware law. It modifies the standard corporate duties, yada, yada, yada. Certified B Corp, this is a voluntary certification by the nonprofit
So
B
it's
Lab.
actually stronger. The PBC is a legal thing as opposed to just like a feel-good thing.
So one of the things I heard is there's like a separate board that Anthropic is beholden to, and they get to make overall decisions in the public benefit.
Oh,
The important part is directors have legal flexibility to balance shareholder financial interests with the public benefit, which is the responsible development and maintenance of advanced AI for the long-term benefit of humanity. So that really does give them more, I totally agree with you that there's like, pressure. From
Yeah,
the
would
top.
they,
I've heard
if they
of-
were public, would they be able to say no to the DOJ?
Right.
That's the question.
So like I heard about, I listened to a talk on this, and it was a guy about, it was the guy that helped Dario come up with this structure. So I watched a talk on it.
who was
And
that? Was it like
I'd have to look it
a
up.
political figure, business figure?
He's like one of your San Francisco guys that drops a lot of acid and like comes up with weird corporate structures.
Oh, okay, or one of those.
these weirdos.
Yeah,
Probably in the
time traveler.
Effective Ultras camp.
Yeah.
It was mostly about like, he's like a historian on corporate culture and like how to structure businesses. What he said was, there's a similar structure that Anthropic took, that also like a Danish company took that does insulin, where they're going to sell it to some big company and
Pfizer.
they're going to jack up the price, but they had structured it in such a way that they had a separate board. There was like, our job is like in the public benefit, right? To get insulin into the people who need it. So like all decisions have to go through this board and they have to approve this. Whatever corporate wants to do, these guys have like veto rights. So that's a similar structure with this. These guys, this separate board can be like, no,
Right.
we can't do
Who's on
this.
that board? Do you know?
That I don't know.
I know, I know this from the thing yesterday was that,
I'll see if I can.
it's the
find
only
it.
company that has, the board is the 7 founding members. And it's the
Okay.
only company where all the founding members are still with the company.
Right.
And it just goes to this, it's basically, it's a bunch of defactors from OpenAI who used to just go to a park every day and talk about how they would do it the right
Yeah,
way.
that's from the Bloomberg video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, they said it's basically the same 7 co-founders are all the same 7 and they all talk every day and they're the board. And yeah, it's interesting. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I love the whole reference to a runaway civilization. I've been saying it for a year or more, like this is a runaway civilization that's occurring. I'm gonna pull our attention a little bit off. We might come in and out of mythos and anthropic politics and so on, and things that are happening. But I do want to also cover in the last 2 weeks some of the interesting things that came out. This one came out this week. This is Anthropic specific. So, Jordan, I know you love this. This is nested subagent support came out. So in Codex had this for a long time where a subagent could spawn a subagent, which could spawn, I think, up into an infinite on Codex. Anthropic released this for Claude Code, and it's capped at 5. I haven't used it. Jordan, I know you love it. Did you use it?
I don't know how to trigger it. Well, I guess you could be like spawn a subagent and spawns a subagent. Like I just like the pattern of like a fan out. So like if you need a bunch of orchestrators, like normally you'd have an orchestrator and it does like a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
But if you can have a subagent that can spawn subagents, you can have like an orchestrator that pays attention to your orchestrators. And then you can split this guy up into do like 3 different things.
Yeah.
Right? And it just becomes like an easy mental model to like, okay, this thing does this, which does these 3 things, and then it all collapses, and then the next guy goes. So like, I like it as just like an easy mental model. You kind of,
Don't you get it with workflows?
workflows are very similar, right? But we didn't have workflows before, so like this is how I would structure. Like in my brain, it's easy to think about,
Can you
right?
give a basic example? of how-
Like, okay, it's like you're building, you're an orchestrator, you're gonna do a whole fucking project, right? So it's like planning. Okay, what's in planning? It's like this subagent, that subagent, that subagent. But previously, the way you'd have to do that in Claude would be like, okay, you're an orchestrator, you do planning A, and then that comes back, and then you do planning B, and it's like, it's just nicer if you can like encapsulate it, and like, context goes out, gets used, thrown away, and comes back to your guy, right? And then context goes out, gets thrown away, and comes back to your guy. Context goes out, gets thrown away, comes back to your guy, and then you like distill, and you move on to the next step, right? I don't do a bunch of like crazy parallelism. Or another one is like
There's a, this is the guy that you sent me, who explained it very well about if you want to see what a structure would look like for multi-level sub-agent depth, right?
Yeah, it's another one is like do web research or something. So it's like, okay, here's a sub-agent that's going out and doing this research, here's a sub-agent that's going out and do this research, and like you're orchestrating a bunch of them. But in a research task, you want it to do like different things, right? Like go and research and find me good websites to research from, and then come back, and then boom. Then you can like parallelize those can like fan out and come back, and then you can distill, and then that research is done, and then you could orchestrate 20 of them, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so you don't need a depth of 5, I think that's kind of insane, but you need a depth of like, you have an orchestrator that has orchestrators, and then maybe like 3, you know.
How do you manage context in memory when you
Well, because you know, you have those guys come back and like always return right artifacts and come back to like the main guy.
What if one of them goes about the context and that's in the million or 250 tokens?
Well, you run into a problem where consolidating all that back is an issue, right? Like this, but you're always going to have that issue with that, with whatever structure you have, right? So I'll usually do like, do your work, write raw artifacts, distill. Like, so you fan out and then distill back, right? So that's kind of how memory systems work these days. You know, it's like store everything, distill, and like you read the distill, like the other data is there.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like it.
I love the way he explained it, where he said like noisy stuff in your context window that you don't really want. And
yeah, I use it as throwaway stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I like sub-agents, like do this thing, I don't care what you did.
yeah, just come back to
Die
me
and
with
give me
the result. Yeah.
Right? And you just keep doing that in like a fan out chain and fan back.
So like one example could be your main orchestrator calls a sub-agent, and that sub-agent determines that, hey, I need to use Chrome. So I will spawn a sub-agent because, you know, if you use Chrome, there's like a million tool calls that pollute the context window. So this sub-agent's gonna spawn a sub-agent and say, go do something with Chrome and come back and tell me when it's done. And then he's gonna maybe spawn off 2 other sub-agents to do the same. He'll take that information, aggregate it, and return it back to the main orchestrator. That sort of flow.
Yeah, it's just how you normally, I use sub-agents as like throwaway context. Like do
Yeah.
your task, give me the result, I don't care, I don't need to know what you did.
So it falls in line with some things that are now, I think we can call them principles of working with agents, which is the most ideal situation you want when working with an agent is you want the context window to only be focused on the specific task. Like the more you sort of pollute it with all these other instructions, the more blurry and worse it is. So if you can move towards a system where it's like every single sub-agent is like hyper-focused on one thing, you just get better results. That's the principle.
And you can throw away the minutia, all those tokens doing all the work. You don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you want that to go away.
Yeah.
So you,
Well, okay, so you know, it brings up a lovely point that, so about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Daisy did a video in London, similar to the Claude Code event that Ian went to, so the London one, and Daisy went there and spoke, and she said something that I thought was a humongous fucking deal and didn't seem to catch on with the whole world. She said that the limitation within Anthropic, like what they perceive as the ultimate limitation to their ability to make the model go higher, is the 1 million context window. So she said that when they're developing constructs for Claude Code, the only thing they really are sort of like keeping in mind is the context window. And the reason she was sort of, didn't give super specifics, but it was something like, we can't make that go any higher. Like we've been stuck on it and we see no Ian, do you recall, like, she literally was like, we don't think it's gonna change anytime soon.
I heard like 1 million context isn't gonna change for like 4 years. Like,
Yeah, we're stuck with that.
Is there any, like, ELI 5 simple explanation? I don't.
Oh, on the why?
Yeah.
They don't know, well, my understanding, and the way she was putting it out was,
Yeah.
we do not know why.
Oh, interesting.
And
As
so-
as it grows, it's exponential.
Wow.
It's like as the context grows, it's like exponentially harder. So
Yeah, they have no clue how to figure out how to bump it higher. And so the way that they're mentally thinking about their constructs is they call it, she called it, how do you develop something that scales with intelligence? So she gave a grading on like hooks. Does hooks scale with intelligence? Does MCP servers scale with intelligence? Do skills scale with intelligence? And scaling with intelligence means that if you have a skill and a new model comes out, does the skill scale with the model? And she put a grading on each of these things. And it was really interesting because I think skills was like 1 out of 5. Hooks was like sort of 5 out of 5. MCP was like 2 out of 5. What was the other one? Subagents, I think.
But that's
was
fine, because if hooks is 5 out of 5, that is literally harness engineering, which they tell us it's absolutely useless.
Yeah, so I asked Ian, I want Ian to like go back to the lady who said don't do harness engineering, because I want to hear a correction
more
on that.
information too, because I didn't really totally understand what context she meant.
Yeah, so it's a good point, and we do need an answer on like what exactly does
There
that
is
mean.
this company called
Well, it might be like
Subq.ai.
more of like creating harnesses from scratch.
And
Yeah.
But I mean, skills are manual instructions of writing something. Wasn't that like when Fable came out, like same day they posted that you better look at all your skills? They're way too detailed, way too
Yes.
You have to rewrite them, it's too. So that's why they don't skill. They don't scale.
Yeah, I totally agree. So
Oh, yeah,
skills
so-
sitting at one out of 5 on the skills scale, and I think it was this week that someone basically was like, skills are they accrue technical depth. And I'm sure some of you have seen this, that if you haven't changed if you made a skill a year ago or 6 months ago and you haven't changed it, I'm sure you probably feel a little bit guilty about like, fuck, I need to change that thing. I don't have time. The answer is probably to just completely remove it. And don't even try to, my approach is like, don't even try to understand what you were doing 6 months ago. Forget it. Delete it and then say to, when Fable comes back, if it does, you just say like, here's what I need, please make a new skill or please make a skill for it. See what it comes up with. Don't let it pollute itself with your previous ideas.
so Subquadratic, they basically claim that they're chasing 12 million context window, lossless,
Oh, these guys.
which is quite interesting. They've opened up API-based access to their models. I was
Did
just
they?
wondering if anyone,
No, I applied, I signed up for.
I signed up too,
and
but I
they-
didn't hear back.
Yeah, they said like, because of demand, it's gonna be longer.
And one thing that
How are they going to run this?
one thing that I've noticed, I don't know, to be honest, but one thing that I've noticed is that currently they're only unlocking 1 million context window. So I don't know if it's a grift, it's just like reselling.
This is someone, yeah, so someone trying to get bought out. This is probably, it's like, we kind of all know who's owning all the compute in the world. So if you're not one of these big players, where are you going to get the compute needed to run anything over 1 million? Because we do know that as you get closer to 1 million, the compute demand and requirement is like just unbelievably higher. Curious, very curious.
million of what?
Has anybody tried the
Context window tokens.
Has anybody tried the Gemma models that came out, Gemma 4?
Has anyone tried Gemma models?
Yeah.
Have you seen that they created a diffusion model?
That was new this week.
Yeah.
I haven't played with it.
I haven't downloaded it, but I run Gemma 4 and the one uncensored Gemma 4, and they run really well. But the diffusion is interesting because it's not token generated, it does everything at the same time. I mean, it's a large language model, but a diffusion style. So
It's like way faster tokens.
way faster token, but they say that that it performs, the performance is less.
Like performance in what? aspect. Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it's like quality, you know, whatever that is.
I was also wondering if, like a road's 100 million context isn't just basically slicing it. You remember the LCM talk that was here last week? Like you are basically taking an active context, compressing it, summarizing it, creating a smaller 500 token chunk, and then basically if a model needs to recursively go back in order to check on some true false, it takes like 3 hops, but you don't have to hold the entire 20K in the context. Now with Fable being Fable, and being good out of the box with a very minimalistic system call, what if we use it at the beginning to basically draft the PRD of whatever we want to do, and it executes a minimalistic session as a sub-agent, which works similarly to LCM but forward.
Well, this is the nested sub-agents. This is why it's
instead
like,
of compressing, you conflate it.
But that LCM thing, that's a new way of thinking of RAG. It's just like how do we inject context?
And then how do you flip the script?
It was like
If we know that we-
just in time context. It's kind of what you want, right?
Yeah.
If we want to have a massive context window in order to advance the model itself, to train or even to generate apps, currently what we do is we have RAG and we are basically going back to the data source. Now if we wanted to inflate the context window, how do we take this and flip it forwards so it actually can supply
yeah, that's really confusing.
But how do we?
DeepSeek did this though. A lot of, I mean, not exactly what you're saying, but DeepSeek 4 Pro has a new method of handling like the bigger context windows because they have less hardware, so they had to come up with a better solution. And they have this all documented. It's actually fascinating. I can't summarize it for anybody right now,
but it still remains that that no one has really sort of pushed beyond the 1 million context window, and that's kind of like the important thing here is that it turns out maybe because it's so hard, you just don't try, and you go down this route of like, well, if I can do a nesting of 5 sub-agents, I effectively have, you know, whatever that combinatory multiplication factor is of context window available.
I've gone backwards and I'm like, even though I have access to 1 million, I only want to work in 200K. And it forces me to be like, yeah, if I clear at any time, then I get back to where I was, right? It like forces a constraint on you that will help you work in 1 million. Like I hit 1 million context because I was running a long Fable task, but like midway through it, forgot how it was supposed to be working.
Oh, yeah.
I told it to do all its work in sub-agents, and it just acts as orchestrator. And then, like, I was checking it when it was at, like, 900K context. It wasn't doing it. It was just doing the work itself now. And I was like...
The dumb zone, basically.
It's in the dumb zone. Like, it's not... So, like, one of the things I did, and I need to figure out... I may be curious if anybody knows. Does anybody know how to give Claude access to how much context it's using? Currently, you probably can't do it. One thing I did yesterday, and I was like, here's my 5-hour window, here's how much time you have left, and here's the 1 week window. So I was like, in the 5-hour window, don't go over 85%, right? And I'm like, when you're at 85%, figure out how much time you have left. And I'm like, do like a dream sequence. Like use Haiku to like find shitty bugs, like documentation bugs. Just like in a loop, but like don't go to 95 and just sleep. Because if you hit the 5-hour window, it stops. And I'm like, no, I need you to resume, like overnight, right?
There's a flaky technique that would work. You can set up a monitor straight away when you get into context.
Yeah.
And your status bar is Python script, which can read those numbers thereafter.
But
Can you write it into a file and monitor and go, okay, just
Yeah. I didn't do it for like the context size. That was probably what I'll do today. But well, now we don't have Fable, so it doesn't matter. Anyways,
but yeah, you have access to all those numbers.
Can you compress?
compress what?
Slash compress, like automatically. Because I want,
You can't call tools.
this is fucking annoying.
You can't call loops that look at that by hand.
Because I want to be able to be like, okay, we did a chunk of work. Here's the next thing I want you to work on. You should be able to clear context and go.
But I like working with it. I like working with the one that 1 million orchestrator, but everything's delegated to T-marks.
Yeah.
Everything else is small context.
If you try the BG, like Claude -- BG, and in the prompt put /context or even /usage, you might have to spawn it into a Tmux pane though. But I know that -BG is basically a way to get around the -P, and then you can give Claude the interactivity and the.
Yeah, because like even having, you do need something to like act. So this is why like nested subagents are so important, right? Because like if I'm just like, first thing I do is like, okay, you're a Fable subagent, right? And then boom, all my main context is now forked into there. And then this guy can like kill it when it's done, right? But if you can't do like multiple nestings, you kind of lose that ability, right? Because everything in the orchestrator just becomes.
I think as a human trying to make it happen, it's too hard. Like that's why I like having skills that are designed to say, figure out what the graph looks like. Because most graphs are either shouldn't actually happen, or if they do, they should just be workflows. And it's a really extremely deep system that gets into.
I don't do any of the fancy.
But I don't either. I let the skill do it for me.
Yeah, but I don't even do that. I just like
shared it
walk
in
prompts
the
lazily.
chat. There's a GitHub repo from this guy from Netflix. He claims to compress the context window to 60 to 95%. Might be worth looking into.
This one, Headroom,
Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah, I featured that.
compressed tool outputs, log files, and RAG chunks before they reach the LLM. 60 to 95% fewer tokens, same answers. Headroom.
Yeah, I looked into it because I featured it in Wednesday, and basically it's a pre-tool, pre-tool dispatch call that compresses the raw.
Doesn't this mess with the cache? Doesn't this totally destroy cache?
Not really, because when you're dispatching a tool call, I don't know, a database search or something, it has the entire command back that was executed. It goes out, and what comes back is usually a scan of things. Now you only need the data. You don't need like a lot of fluff.
It's basically a sub-agent.
It's a filter on tools, so that when the tools bring their data back to your agent, it's compressed. Rather than whatever, like if you've got a whole lot of logging,
Yeah.
that would come straight through to the context.
This is like another person made something similar where they recreated all the commands that you could run in Bash so
Yeah.
that they return extremely minimized, like they recreated ls, they literally recreated all the possible Unix
So-
commands.
Well,
And
he just compresses the actual output stream of them.
yeah, it's a different take, but it's interesting also, like if you recreate the Unix tools so that they only output something compressed, then you just get compressed output. But nonetheless, to me, it's like it's still a sub-agent in a sense, because I suppose you're not computing as many tokens. Maybe that's the point.
Can you explain why you brought up cache? I feel like I don't understand LLMs well enough.
If you have a context window set, and let's say you have a bunch of tool calls in it, and you just rip them out, like let's say you're trying to do garbage collection, or we can call it garbage collection. It's like I have all these tool calls, and what if I take them and I either compress them so that I get more context back, or I remove them? Well, you now invalidated the cache. Because the cache is based on what is precisely in the context window. So the moment you remove anything that is not on the tail, on the head, you invalidate cache. That's how cache systems work.
Though there is that new technique where you can change it.
Yeah, they are playing with changing the cache directly in the GPUs, which is unbelievably cool architecting and engineering, but that was only for what the hell was that for? That was like that one feature they released where you can swap the system prompt live.
The thing is, you
But
can
that makes sense because the system prompt, so the way that Claude writes its context window, it's very structured. The very top, the very beginning is always the system prompt, and then you have, I think, what is it, the tools, the tool allocation, the tools that are available, and then what the hell's underneath it? I think it's the root Claude MV. It's
Yeah.
always like this every single time.
But you can still do pretty much a lot of wizardry and fuckery before the turn ends, because that's when it gets written to cache. So
Yes, before, yes,
before turn
before.
ends, before the output is actually produced by the LLM.
Yeah.
You can do compression, you can do nesting, you can do multi-hop graph-based traversal in order to reduce things, and when the turn ends, that's when it gets written to cache. So you're not invalidating
Yeah.
anything.
It's
You're
basically
just
like the
talking
tool
to
call.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
manage
it's an
the
extra
tool call. Yeah. But yeah, you're 100% correct. Let me see if I can breeze through some of these, and feel free to bring things up. It's totally fine. We got 25 minutes left, and then we'll do lunch. Manage agents gets cron and secrets. There has been a huge push for, and we saw this coming, where the Claude managed agents is just going to get more and more love from the Anthropic team. I think this is sort of what, so I don't even know what the hell is happening, but what I do see taking, 30,000 feet up high view, managed agents is getting more and more features. And I think it just means that we're going to have to start really understanding it deeply. I think it's going to be like a necessity at some point, that how the managed agent system works is going to be really important, because we might be, let's say, forcefully pushed into its direction that's my speculation on it.
It's absolutely correct. In the corporate world, where this is the compliance standard eventually, whatever custom system you will be creating or generating needs to have a shell managed.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of easy to whip up. Like C-suite middle level managers could just do them in their software work, and then include that agent in whatever your custom hardness custom solution is. And that doesn't invalidate that the custom thing is powered by Anthropic, Claude APIs, etc. It's just you need to be aware of how they function, how they work, how can they be spun up on Twin, and how to integrate them into your custom systems.
Totally agree. Yeah, they have released non-stop features with it. I think even last night, it's not in my slides here, they had the ability to delegate your sandboxes to whoever provider, E2B, Amazon, and so on. Let's see what else we have. I'm going to run through these rather quickly. I might even skip some, like this one, OpenAI file. We know about the OpenAI is going for their IPO. Agents in biologies. What is this? Why did I save this? Oh, this is, if we didn't have last week's Anthropic event, this would have showed up in our Saturday. I will not cover it. It's a really big article. Okay, what else we got here? Gemini 3 Flash is the new default. Who cares about Gemini? Apple Foundation models support Claude. That's a little bit interesting. Let's spend 10 seconds on it and close it. So new for Apple developers, Foundation models support for Claude lets developers use Apple Foundation models framework to call Claude. And I think if you have code, if this code looks useful to you, now it's available to you. That's the news.
There was the Siri upgrade too.
Yeah, they opened it up. It used to be OpenAI only. Now you can plug in Gemini, you can plug in Claude.
And it has a different local model.
That's I think that's Gemma.
So
or something similar.
It's a Gemma.
Watered down Gemini.
No, Gemma fine tune, I think. But like, now you have a Gemma model on your phone. I don't know. I saw one guy talk about it. It's interesting.
It's from a business perspective, it's actually very interesting because what Apple is telling the world is that we are not going to fuck with AI. You build whatever you want. We'll just give you infrastructure and clients. So from a business perspective, no, but that's what they're doing.
No, but they sucked at it, which is why it's
I mean,
good
yes.
thing they're going this direction, right?
Yes, but again, from their point of view, they don't have to earn billions trying to chase the other guys on the market. They can actually heavily monetize their user base towards whatever we actually cost, which is kind of cool.
And also they are betting on their own device agents.
This is
Which
again
is a
like
different approach.
harness engineering. If you want to use small models, you need to have tightly scoped harness.
So one of the things the Apple stuff is doing is like if the model realizes the request is too hard, then it will go out and use cloud models, right? So like it's more of just like a orchestration locally. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
What happens if they come out with new phones and how much memory they put on it? Like, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not an Apple guy, I don't really give a shit, but it's
It is
interesting.
something to think, something to put in your mind as a tool to be used for whatever problem shows up in the future. Good to know, for sure. Here's another news item. Well, let's give Codex some love. So they are doing this concept that I think, what is it? AT&T did back in the, I don't know how long ago in the US, rollover minutes, but now it's rollover, what is it? Rollover resets?
You can choose to reset whenever you need to instead of waiting for them, and I think you get one a month.
Yes, you get
It's
one.
very unclear.
Yeah, 'cause so they're playing with this idea that if you max out your usage window, and there's a button that you can hit to reset it, and you're going to get that button once a month. Is that
But you reset only 5-hour window or weekly window?
Weekly.
Weekly, you would never want to do it under 5 hours. You want
well,
to-
unless your production is down.
It
pretty.
resets better, right?
Like if you burn through all your stuff in 3 days and you have like 4 days to actually have life, you can hit the reset button and do more coding.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting nod to the addiction stuff that's we're seeing with the LLMs. So here's another way to never get off your computer, basically.
Someone commented on Fable, I don't know who it was, maybe Theo, that one full 5-hour window equals 25% of a weekly window on Fable. Which is
Interesting.
weird.
Well, so Fable
How
does.
how does that work?
Yeah, Fable does consume 2x credits of Opus. So that was the
Yeah,
algorithm.
but it's the same window.
Well, okay, they said they gave us double 5-hour windows, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives you the ability to fuck up your weekly even
Faster.
more, quicker. It's
Yeah.
not like they gave you extra tokens. They gave you extra tokens you can use in a 5-hour window, which fucks up your weekly, right?
They're trying to get you to get to paying usage faster. That's kind of the goal. Yeah, but we covered this a couple weeks ago. This came out a couple weeks ago. I think it was 3 weeks ago. Here's another news item. So Dario loves to write his essays. This one was released, I think it was last week. I think. Definitely go check it out. His essays are always impactful and always seem to be referenced, usually 3-6 months later. Huh?
Do you think he writes them? I'm not gonna lie.
I think the talk in the company, from what I've heard, is that he actually does
Yeah, he's
write
like
them.
an avid writer.
Oh,
He does write them, and he does. These are his memos to the world in a way.
He's the marketing guy, right? So he'd be
Yeah.
doing this stuff.
He's certainly a figurehead in that capacity. I would agree with that. What else we have here? GPT native charts. This actually is pretty cool. I think it's a skill or a plugin. I can't remember. So if you got Codex and you want fancy graphs, I know there's many companies and startups that their whole shig is to give graphs to people, and they just probably went out of business when this came out.
Can you export it?
I don't know. But there's the features there to check and see.
We're
In ChatGPT,
discussing.
not Codex?
In Codex. In
It
Codex.
says chat.
ChatGPT.
Oh, directly. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I can't read. Yes.
We were discussing this with, I think, Andrew last week. Why are we so stuck in the chat interface? Why not just make everything HTML? So if we need this feature, it's already there.
I don't know. Well, so one thing to keep in mind that we know is that teams in these AI labs are all sort of siloed. So we like the rumor is that GPT is basically going to die and it's going to be replaced by Codex almost entirely. But it doesn't mean the GPT team dies right now. They still deliver and ship and do useful things for customers.
You're going to merge, if anything.
Yeah, yeah. So what else we have? Connector portal. Let me see if this is what I think it is. We're also adding a new in-app submission portal for developers. Okay, this is what I think it is. So I've been like saying this. It was my speculation many weeks back that we're all going to be funneled and forced into either for supporting your customers or reaching people on any of the provider platforms. They're going to give us like an app market, right? So plugins is one of them. This is another one, this connectors thing, which is the same thing. It's a plugin. But you go through some process, you get vetted. If your thing is high quality, if it passes security concerns and so on, then you sort of like, okay, if you're now, your app can be used as like an official connector. So if you, I don't have time to show it, but like if you have Claude desktop open on the top left, there's usually it says connectors, right? So if you want to be one of these guys, you go through a process.
Claude also like auto recommends them.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and
So
there's
you're
so
like,
many levels
hey-
to this, right? Like, what does it mean for business? But you're right. Yeah, it does. Like, you're,
So like I was doing it myself in Cloud Code for the web. I like added the Shopify CLI to connect to Shopify data, and eventually Cloud was just like, oh, we have a connector for this. Like, you want to use that?
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, no, but I have
They're good.
Like, it forces it on. You like.
I don't
press a
think it
button.
forces it on, but it's definitely in your face.
Yeah,
But the
you-
connector's usually worse than your own client tools, right?
Well, I was like, I already have one and it works. Like, why the fuck do I want yours?
So the way I'm seeing it, I love this topic because like the way I'm seeing it is that from an FDE perspective, when you got people coming to you saying, I need a solution, the thing that I feel is the most scary to tell anyone is like, here's this GitHub repo, you know, it's got 1,000 stars, but that doesn't mean shit. That doesn't mean it's safe. That doesn't mean it's vetted. I would feel far more comfortable, especially from a liability standpoint, suggesting and recommending something that Anthropic has also blessed.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of thing is going to become incredibly important because it's like, it also sort of gives you a way to get out of an FDE role where it's like, hey, that's not supported.
Like with the connectors, my problem is like the Shopify CLI one, I know what it does. The connector, I have no idea, right? So like
Yeah.
for me, a guy who wants control, I want to be able to like vet it myself. I don't give a shit if Anthropic vetted it. It might be garbage. I need to.
Okay,
I need to know
interesting.
What it does, right?
It's an interesting point. So I think some things to think about there are like, does the Anthropic process get better over time? Probably
Well,
does.
It's like I know what one thing does. I don't know what the other thing does.
Oh, fair enough.
And the one thing
Yeah.
works for me just fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Yeah.
for me, but like, yeah, for a company, here's your Google Drive connector, go nuts. That's what
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah.
doing anyways.
Yeah, so experts like you are and probably many others in the room, that's like a good strategy. Like, you know what you're doing, and then, but if you're helping those who have no idea what they're doing, which is like 99% of the world, the connectors is sort of your solution to give to them. What else we have? Grok's GPU plus LPU bet. Oh, this guy did a talk. I think I bookmarked it because it was interesting. Yeah, that's the creator of the Grok LPU, which got purchased by NVIDIA, I think. And the only interesting news here is that he did a podcast, and it's really technical. It's really cool. I love it.
He's super smart.
That guy is.
Shit.
Yeah, I totally agree. He is.
He's one of the smart. He's like Demis or something.
He's like
That
a Mark
guy's smart
Rusinovich.
as
Yeah.
shit,
You
man.
made the GPUs at Google, right?
Yeah,
I
he
think
did.
so. Yeah,
Same guy.
And he's good. He's very articulate.
Yeah.
He's very good.
He knows all the details. He's very, very smart. So check that out. That was on Julia Turk, who I think is a researcher. Yeah, ex-researcher. They both work together. Grok LPU. Yeah, the LPUs. Fable, okay, this is an interesting, if Fable ever comes back to us, some of the talk, and I'd love to hear if anyone tried this, similar to the whole GPT thing. First, let's break down this graph. So what we're seeing here is this was trending on X because what they were saying was that, so this line is Opus. I'm colorblind, so whatever this line is, the one in the middle, is Opus. And this line is Fable. Now Fable low is better than Opus high on some very vague metric called score. We don't know what that is. So there was all this trending around like using Fable on low or medium is like really, really good. So I'm curious, did anyone do that? I did. Did anyone else mess around with changing the effort levels?
I was using it on low because I didn't want to run out of tokens. That's the only reason.
But it was just great. It was a great experience.
It's whatever. Fable for me has been Opus. Like, whatever. Like, I haven't played with it enough and spent enough tokens to be like, oh, this does stuff I couldn't do before.
Does anyone here thinks Fable's amazing from their actual experience?
I do.
Like, what can it do that Opus couldn't do for you?
Bigger stuff, like you can take into account far more information than Opus would have. So if you work with Fable like with Opus, you start like, that was a problem in the first place for me, because I was doing prompting the same way I would work with Opus, and it was kind of like getting a little bit better, much better. You didn't feel like, when I looked at all the tools, like Guinea,
because of cost,
stuff, then I immediately noticed it.
What did you say? When did you notice it?
So when I started, when I
You give it a harder
started giving
task.
more
Cost per
the biggest thing, more information, the process, like harder to explain.
On the dimension of score,
Running task, walk away, score again. This is going to low and high.
It was able to pick up stuff like in a code base, working or a user interface or something that has a side effect on some way. Completely different place. It was able to pick up things like that.
And that's really cool too, the fact that it can be in the middle of something, go down a path. Totally rewind.
Yeah.
And then go, I'm going to fix this. And really
from a cost and score perspective, I think from like
it's
a
like
purely
it's like
score
ESF
perspective, I'm curious if you got
you get a given list
home
instructions,
score.
more stuff. They learn 40 minutes. Then
There's no,
Like,
it's not a combined access.
that's what everybody says,
Isn't
but
that
I'm always like,
Maybe I don't know how to read.
they're always like one-shotting.
You're better.
All the people, oh, I got the best model
You
ever.
are.
Look what it
You
one-shots.
are.
I'm like, yeah,
No,
but did
you're
you
not.
like
I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
check? Did you like
Score is-
look? You're looking at the output. Did you like see what it did?
No, but I haven't looked
Something
at
that
it
didn't
that
result
that's
that-
fine.
Yeah, I have.
They have to-
When's
they
the
have
last
cost.
time?
I do it all the time. I don't trust. I need
Yeah.
to see
Right,
that
like
like
where
the
the
shit.
point-
I
And
still
then
don't
they have
trust
another.
models. I verify
Wait,
it a
Jake,
lot.
I have a question. Do you think
Yeah.
that
That's your high.
No, no, I
So
do.
they're
as,
only- they're only
assuming these
doing
models get more and more
our
capable
score,
and more expensive, right?
cost,
Do you think that the thing that
where
you
the
value,
ticket
which
lies
is
on
that this thing,
low
holy
high.
shit, you
Yeah.
just let it run and
Yeah, yeah,
moves,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it does
No,
it
no, I immediately saw what you're
perfectly,
saying. I was just trying to poke holes into
will
like,
be the
I wonder
direction
if there'd be
that
more there.
things go
Yes,
slash
it
you
does
go,
make sense.
or you
I
use
was
the
trying.
most capable model to make the best
no,
plan,
I think it's
and then
interesting.
have like the cheapest,
We think-
minimum viable model
You can-
execute
A model can think too
that
much.
plan, knowing that it might not
Okay.
be, the
Okay.
execution
Just
may
as
not
you-
be as amazing.
So I'm fine with that, like,
Yeah,
the
that's bad thing, right? Yeah, overthinking.
Retard max.
Use
That's why retard max
use
is
a high-
like between low and high, it's pretty much the same.
And then
Yeah.
they decide what
You're getting the same amount
Sure.
done.
But also, I don't.
For less effort.
But
Yeah,
I,
Isn't that
but I do
weird how
run
it's
sort of
tracking?
group reviews.
There's so many things about LLMs that track so much with humans, which makes a whole bunch of sense, but also at the same time, humans are more
You'll get that delivery review
biological
and go,
LLMs.
yes, this makes sense, I'm gonna go and make the changes.
Makes
for you automatically.
LLMs are just like a universal mirror.
But,
That's what I call it.
Universal mirror, yeah.
The way I'm looking at batteries is
They-
that
Or
what,
really bad.
you don't really
It's a
need
mirror.
good
Yeah,
models
yeah.
for most things.
Yeah.
but you do
Of the
need
operator.
a plan.
Yeah.
The way I was using
Yeah.
Fable, because I was on $100 plan that I upgraded and then got rug today, was I'd be like, here's
That's an insult to them. term
You-
mask. Is it mask or
You
is it
need
like?
to spin off
Well,
Haiku, Sonnet, or Opus models only to do the work. You can make the plans, you can review the work, but you don't ever do the work.
Different capabilities.
And then I was like, go.
Yeah.
And it would only use like 135
So it's a
tokens,
junior.
135K tokens to do like a couple hour run. And I was like, that's not bad.
It's like a
On a $100 plan, it
of
would not use that much.
This is
Yeah, that's how I used to use.
how you mirror things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I thought like that's what we really found.
Sonnet and
That's my
And like,
perspective. That's
it
my
worked. I would
perspective.
never do
Like,
this. But now I'm like, maybe I should.
I have a question about this.
Let me see if we have anything else. We have 5 minutes. Nothing else?
There was an interesting benchmark this week called Agent Last Exam. If you want to pull up the leaderboard in here, it's great. Agent Last Exam.
You're almost
A-
wasting double work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, Agent Last Exam.
Put the leaderboard.
I don't know if it makes sense, but I know Fable implementing
Is it a
it,
Hugging Face?
I'd run out of tokens too quick.
No, it was some sort of
So it made me, I wouldn't think about this way with Opus, and I'm fine, right? Whatever.
ago.
But I'm like, Fable's not gonna be able to do that. So now how do I think about it?
Gastown?
Yeah.
Like, it was doing a lot of implementation with Sonnet.
I thought that was. I
The
thought
fun
that
thing
was
is in
kind of
usage, it tells you which
really,
models spend all the
fascinating.
tokens. It was
Like
still
without the
Fable
rails
mostly using the majority of the tokens, like at least cost wise.
Oh, what happens?
Yeah, yeah.
And Haiku is in like the, because Haiku is
Yeah, there's
like
been so
going
many
out and like reading
simulations
everything
too, though,
before
where
you
Yeah,
go.
there was
I don't know,
No,
I
no,
could have
Yeah, but
used
this was just.
Fable, just raw dog it. So that was what I came up with, just to play with it, right?
Did you see
I didn't
it?
think I saw
Was the
it.
output any better for me?
I didn't see it.
No, I don't think it's probably the way you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that,
I gotta
because
see
you mentioned that you speed up what you get.
But let me find this. We got 5 minutes up. Let's see. What is the agent last exam? Was this something from this week?
Yeah, it was only this week. It was only like. I have a website.
Well, the last exam concept has been around for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
The
that's
thing
right.
is
But
with
this was some sort of a new
auto
benchmark that there's a bunch of curated
You
research
need to tell it
things together. It had
still.
like
You
a
need
1,000
to
really
prompt
strong,
engineers
really
that-
hard.
I guess if you're loop
agents
engineering is
supposed
what
to
you're
be
looking
like
for.
mimicking
Like,
real world
if I'm
business
just like, if
value
you will
tasks.
do
It's
this,
not like an
don't just
exam.
do it, and
These
it's not
benchmarks
like,
are like
oh,
university
is this the
exams.
best thing
They give you like
that I could
how do
have
you
built?
pass a
It
test.
still
something
won't
like that.
do
These
that.
are long running. Like if you find the benchmark, you would see that they ran like 80 hours per half a million tokens to do that. But the curious thing is like TPD 5.5 Fable
Yeah.
number of
Eval is
mistakes.
going to run against the.
Using
Yeah,
using
so
like
I had
OpenClaw as a
Fable
hard.
write a plan, I was like, hey, how are you gonna like,
The most
test
interesting
that,
thing
like, this
to
isn't
me was like how
complete garbage?
poorly
It's
all
like,
of the
I
harnesses
didn't-
and what of
That
I was
right there.
going to. I was like, okay, well,
So the pass
you know,
rate
you can
of
ask it to,
this
but
is
it's
like
not
a
asking
total
you
number
to
of
do it.
1,000 or something.
So you need to,
Things they
Yeah,
have.
but
They got through like
yeah.
Pass rate.
For the mean score,
the pass rate's I think like a number of percentage of how many. Oh, so if there's
Well, it's
1,000
like, I wasn't
tests.
asking it to, so it
The
wasn't.
mean
When
score,
it's
what's the difference
Okay,
between the
wait,
mean
so
score
how about
and
this?
the,
The thing, you know.
I'm not sure what the mean score, I'm not sure what the mean score actually is. Probably the number, like some sort of a, I don't know, but the pass rate is the interesting bit. It's like how many of these exams they actually pass. So 24% of all the
like
available.
what is
It
this?
seems pretty bad to me. They were really hard.
Harness anymore.
Like, one of them was like a
loop
analyzing brain scans, MRI scans, using some sort of real life software. Excellent to like
Just,
to do that.
you could just
So it was
kinda
like
be
the idea was to see how well these agents are handling
critically, fix
real life
bugs,
actual tech.
do that until.
To me, it was like not well, like you know all
Just
the
adding that to the
But
pump.
not well alone.
I mean, but
Well,
Codex did the
You
best.
see, mine,
reflection on
so
its
in
work.
my.
Codex did the
Google,
best.
Codex did the best with the
But this
GPD
is,
5.5.
So
So
expensive, so
and
the
you
thing
get
I
all
always
the
wonder
hype
about,
about
like, you know, one of
Fable
these
and
things is
Speaking
like,
like
yeah, Boris, and
workflow
you're easy
pages
for
and
you
all
to
that
fucking
stuff.
Yeah,
say,
it's
right.
right? But I don't know,
I mean,
that
I
doesn't
think
mean
there's
I'm
also
right,
this
just 'cause
aspect
I'm,
is
like,
that,
you know, resentful or something.
Well, I mean, we don't do
It's,
benchmarks
can you do
on our stuff, or
loop
very few.
engineering
Like, sometimes I'll do a
in way that
benchmark
is
on,
equally
like,
or more
output
code
of a
efficient?
local model.
Are you sure?
of a
Would
couple
it-
different
it's-
local models. Like, we're just using quality by what, how it looks. And stuff can often look good.
Oh, yeah,
Not-
yeah. We talk about it all the time where the
Um,
Gemini
One of
benchmarks.
the
And
some,
this was, but
there
this was
are
more like
applications, a constellation of applications around.
because this benchmark more
So I have
like, it was
Angular
about
Live, which has
coding
all the
time,
information
because all
about
of these,
session support.
like
I
even,
have,
even in
Happy
favor
Radar
of the
has all
stuff
information
that
about
Anthropic is doing, they seem to be like
memory,
coding
signals,
workflows,
stuff like
coding
that. And on
type
the
of things, they
space
somehow
thing,
relate to
I
writing
have
software.
so
But this was
that
like actually
inside
using
of
the software
if
that
you
they
use
write themselves.
intelligence,
Yeah.
So
But
it gets a
I
lot
think-
harder after that. And
there's
so it's
think-
like you're very good at.
But I don't do a lot of coding
Yeah, yeah.
with what I do. It's using open source models, not open source, open source applications and running them like Reaper or like doing audio editing. You know, creating workflows
I
to
guess the-
mix
the
video
thing
together,
is you just made me
or even like
realize that
CAD or electronics.
you don't trust the
And,
model in one way.
you know,
I don't trust the model
that's why I like
to
Codex.
correctly, because
It-
so
it-
often, I would
it
say
feels
probably like 20 to 30%
Like,
of
it
the
feels,
time,
but
I
it
start
creates
something,
better
and
results.
then it's like, wait,
Even
no,
when I
no,
put them
you
the
didn't,
code
we
and
had a
Codex
slightly different
together,
idea.
it's like
Yeah,
Codex
we're
refined
misaligned,
the
and so,
material.
Yeah,
Quad code.
maybe coding is more like
Yeah, you just,
aligned for
like,
general purpose.
throw
thing.
like prompts.
Code code is so fixated on writing code.
There is still,
If you ask
there
it
is
to
still
run
prompt
software,
engineering.
do
to
something
certain-
for you.
Yeah.
It'll
Like,
think
you can
about
call
like
it
it was
loop
writing
engineering, not
software.
prompt
So that's
engineering
probably
anymore.
like
But it's
codes
like,
might be better.
here's the thing, so like,
Imagination.
I wrote up a
I
big
mean,
plan,
Codex,
and
they,
phase
like
zero,
I
I was
think a
like,
month
you need
ago,
to build
they
like the test harness,
bought
that we're gonna loop
a
over first,
computer
phase zero,
use.
Yeah.
right?
So if
The
you're using
problem
Codex
is,
with computer
that's
vision, you
now,
can
like,
control your
locked in.
computer.
Yeah.
It could go
And
onto
when it does the
websites.
work, it's gonna,
I mean, I have
like, it's
a
not gonna
Midjourney
change that.
subscription, but I could go
Probably
onto
another
the
phase is
Midjourney
like,
site,
Hey, after
So I
that's
just
done,
have
like
Codex
reflect on what it did
prompt
Yeah.
and improve
and run
this. So it's like a loop,
run
and a
all of
loop,
my
and a
Midjourney
loop.
sessions,
Yeah.
which
You know what I mean?
technically is
Well,
automation,
because that's
which
now
is
locked in,
against
it's not
their
gonna
terms
change
of service.
throughout, they could
But
be wrong from the start.
I don't
just
wanna
wrong
get out
all
of-
the way down.
That's my
I
fear,
wanted it
that's
to-
my
I
fear.
wanted
is
to
like
control
that-
it.
that-
You're,
I'm
you have
tired
the
of
wrong
switching
goals.
between programs.
For
Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
And since it can see stuff, it can
like he's
evaluate
saying,
what,
oh, remove the
what's
constraints.
good
Not
and
the
bad.
constraints, like the
and
constraints
it's better
in
at
the
prompting
plan.
than I am.
Like,
Yeah,
I knew
I want to have an
when I
agent
said
of
do
my own
this
that's
work,
actually running
it's just
things
gonna
for me
do
like
it.
that. He'll go to the website
But
and
I-
has to
so then
do
I'll
something
add,
for
like,
me,
hey,
or something,
don't take the plan as gospel.
rather than some sort of
If something needs to change
behind the
because like the
scenes
direction is shitty.
pre-programmed workflow
That's
execution.
they did like
That's where the like
That's
and
why
you put self
practical use beyond
like,
coding.
I'm always
It's
saying,
for these
I
agents.
think
They
you
can
should do
actually
this.
like
but
execute complicated
treat me
things
like
for
I'm
you.
a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
Of course, yeah.
I mean, why,
And
yeah,
I'll use
I wanna
that
do
language
less
and it does, yeah.
switching between
We are-
programs.
You are an idiot.
Technically, I wanna do less work.
Yes.
I just,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
my word is not gospel.
I just wanna,
Like, I'm
like,
an
hey,
idiot.
does this
Like,
look
that's
good?
what I always
This is
like,
guiding
like,
things
I told you to do this.
correctly.
But you're
If I
the
need to
smart
see
one,
something
so
to
it's like,
evaluate it, I have it
my word's not
create a
gospel.
presentation
You
for me
tell me
or
what.
UI.
Like, here's
and
what I
then
think.
Probably enough at
You want to see something,
I'm
they
gonna-
say
let me
yes,
wrap
but
up
you don't
here.
want to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
yes
yeah.
or anything like that. Nobody really wants to do that. Feel informed and boosted like that. Like nobody likes that. So you wanna have an AI that does that work. And all you have to do is like maybe check the work. Say yes, fine. go
Well,
to
check the
work.
work, or there are decisions between the workflow that you have to make. Present it to me, not a lot of buttons.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up our time here. We only get until 12, and I
It's 12:02.
always take advantage of them and go beyond. So we'll wrap up here. We are gonna do lunch right now. So let's take this conversations to lunch. I really want to hear what's happening there. I want to know what's happening here. There's so much exciting stuff to talk about. I heard about gospel or something like this. Wonder what's going on there. Anyways, yeah. So thank you for coming today. See you at lunch if you're going there.
Where are you going?
And I think next door.
Saw you next door.
Cosplay next door. And yeah, see you guys next week.